Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining in today evening. Today we'll be talking about a career in web development, all there is to know, what are the roadmaps, what are the experiences, and we'll get to know a lot about Swati's experience definitely. So I'll just take a moment and introduce Swati. So Swati is working with Microsoft as an software engineer. She has been working with Arcesium for the past 2 years, and she has just joined Microsoft. She has been actively contributing towards research, and she already has 2 research papers to her name. Apart from that, she actively contributes in the mentorship of technical students, and she gives technical as well as career guidance to them. Apart from all of this, she is also actively involved in CSR responsibilities with Microsoft and contributing towards the social responsibility that the company has. We are very thankful that Swati has joined us and she's sharing her knowledge with us. Before we start, maybe we can get a brief introduction of everybody who has joined in. In the chat box, you can talk about where you are from, what do you want to learn, what are you expecting from the session, which city are you from, which college are you from, which year are you in. You can just use the chat box and tell us about yourselves.
Yeah, thank you, Tanvi, for such kind words. Yeah, so guys, let's introduce ourselves. Please use the chat box. Guys, at least ping me your names in the chat.
I think they'll take a minute.
Yeah, sure.
You can tell about your college, which year are you from? Okay, we have Prajwal from Bangalore. We have Nishant from ISM, first year. That's great. How many people already know a bit about web development, or and are you? What all do you already know languages? Okay, we have Ashwarya from VIT. Okay, we have a lot of first year students. Hi Akash. We have Naman from Delhi who is doing masters in computer applications. That's great. Tejaswini from Hyderabad. Awesome. Meda from Shillong. Hi, Meda. IIT BHU, BCA second year. Okay. Okay. BTech semester 3. Right. Okay. So what kind of are you currently knowing anything in web development? Do you know any languages? Sandhya from Bihar. Hi, Sandhya. Hi, Utkarsh. Mern stack developer. Okay. From Bhubaneswar. That's great. Okay, you know Mern, Prabjot knows HTML, CSS, right? I think that is what everyone starts with, right? Okay, JavaScript, HTML, great, awesome. C language, okay. Do we have anybody who is still in school? So we usually sometimes have surprise guests who are still in school and curious about all of this. Okay, Shijesh knows Python, that's great. R programming, SQL, okay, right. So we do have a diverse group of people from different uh, years. So first year, some people pursuing masters. So I think today, I hope every one of you find some value. So we have definitely prepared our brief presentation and what we're going to talk about. We'll be very open to question and answers at the end of the session. Immediately after we are done presenting what we promised you to present. So you can type in whatever questions you have. Oh, civil engineering, that's great. Right. You can type in whatever questions you have, and I would suggest you can maybe also keep a pen and paper with you. You can type in whatever questions you have in the chat box, and we'll take them up at the end of the session. You can also ask yourself, unmute yourself, and ask Swati directly also. Right. So till then, please don't unmute your mics. After that, we'll take up questions. Great. Swati, are we good to go?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Tanvi. So, hi guys, Swati this side. So today, we're planning to talk about something what all career paths you can opt for to become a web or software developer. Okay. So let me share my screen. Please let me know once you're able to see my screen. Yeah. So my screen is visible to you guys, right?
Yes, yes, visible.
Thanks. Okay, so for becoming a web or a software developer, right? I mean, we have different career paths one can take. So if suppose if you're planning to join a company, say ABC, and the title of the job says software developer, then ideally it's a full stack developer. When I say a full stack developer, it means that you will be doing both front end and back end development. But if the title says, okay, a front-end developer, then you will only be contributing towards front-end development. Otherwise, if it says back-end developer, something like that, then it will be, you will be doing back-end development. And then, there is another kind of branch or another kind of title which is upcoming in these days. So that is DevOps or SRE. So by SRE, I mean Site Reliability Engineer, and DevOps is basically developer operations. So, I mean, this is another kind of a career path one can opt for. So this generally undertakes, I mean, if you're going for this kind of a role in the company, then you will be expected to know the whole infrastructure, and you will be expected to, figure out, debug different issues, go and monitor different issues, work on scalability issues. Then you will be, the expectations from DevOps and SRE are quite a bit different from software development. But then again, this is another stream which is upcoming these days. Then there are certain companies which hire for testing roles as well. So the title can be like QA engineer. QA is basically the quality assurance engineer. And the folks who are hired for these roles are expected to work and ensure the quality of that application. So they will be expected to test different scenarios, corner cases, so that there are no bugs while your code is getting pushed to production. Okay. So before diving deep into the specific branches of front-end and back-end development, uh, let's talk in a generic manner. What is front-end development? What is back-end development? What are the expectations? So if I go here and if I write google.com, right? As soon as I write google.com, you can see the screen, right? You can see the Google icon, you can see the search bar, you can see the search icon. Now, if I write Swati and search, you can see different responses for the keyword Swati, which I've searched. Now, the responsibility of front-end developer will be the user interface. So if I'm the end user and Google is the application, so the interface which I'm currently seeing is the responsibility of front-end developer. So where will you place the icon? What will happen? So as soon as I'm clicking search icon, I'm seeing certain responses, right? So how will I render these responses on the screen? And so basically the front-end developer will develop the user interface, keeping in mind the accessibility and the visibility of the application, right? So that it's quite accessible to the end user. And whereas the backend development, it basically involves handling the data and the main logic of the application. So by this, I mean, so as soon as I click the search icon, right, I got these responses. But in the very first place, how I got these responses is the question, right? So something in the backend, as soon as I click the search icon, something in that backend happened. Some API got called, and the API was responsible for giving me the data back. And then the front-end developer took care of rendering that data in the required format. Okay, so the end user can only see the work of front-end developer, I mean, by the bare eyes, but the backend part, the backend developer, the work done by backend developer that is handling the logic is not visible to the end user. So this is the main difference between the front-end development and the backend development. Okay, and then if you're full stack development, then you are expected to work both on front-end and backend development. Okay, now let's deep dive into the specific branches. Okay, so before diving deep, I wanted to talk about generic prerequisites which are required both for any front end, back end, DevOps, testing, all the roles. So the very first topic which I wanted to talk about is designing versus implementation. So whatsoever be the application, I mean, we should always keep in mind that 70% of it is designing and 30% of it is implementation, right? So the designing phase is very important. I mean, if you are implementing and while implementing, you came to know, okay, no, I can place this button somewhere else. No. So this means that, okay, you were not that good in your designing phase. Okay. So one of the experience which I can recall right now is, okay, so when this happened back in 2018, so I was given a work item. I was a full stack developer, and I was given a work item where I had to design a feature, and I had to design both the front end and the back end part. Okay. So I did the backend part, and then I gave a very rough sketch of the front end. Where will I be placing the button? What will happen if a dialog box open? How will that dialog box look like? So very basic, rough sketch on a paper, on a paper using pen. And my mentor said, "Okay, it's good to go. You can go." And I coded down and started implementing when I finished it. And then when the review cycles happen, by the review cycles, I mean that when our work goes to the higher authority and they review your work and they tell you whether it's good to go in production or not. So then that time, right, they started this review cycle saying, okay, can we place this button somewhere else? Or can we make this component as a child component of this parent component? Can we hide this dialog box on so and so condition? So what happened due to that was my total time period for implementation elongated a bit. Why? Because I had to decode a lot of part in my application. So, I mean, why I'm telling you this is when you're starting on your front end career, right? Front end development, it is always I would say recommended to start with a mock. What do I mean? What do I mean by mock up is you can have a very rough mock-up on your screen that how will your screen look like exactly, and then get it reviewed by whatsoever reviewers you're assigned to. Okay. So I mean, so what I did was I just said orally, and like a small sketch kind of a thing, saying, okay, I'll have this dialogue, and this will suffice, but it's not good. I mean, this will increase your review cycle is what I will suggest. So it's good to start with mockups. It's by mockup is you can have a static page kind of a thing using only HTML CSS, where you can show, okay, you'll place the button here, you will place the text here, and so on. So that is very useful. Then the other point I'll mention is data structure and algorithms. I mean, I'm assuming that all of you are aware of data structure and algorithms and why that is important for being a front end or back end or any kind of a web developer or software developer, because these are the basics, I mean, you need to be aware of. Then with what comes in on picture is version control system, Git. Again, this is very, very, very important according to me, because I mean, whatever company you will join, right? So this is required. I mean, they will be using version control system, Git. So Git version control system is nothing but a software which allows you to manage or track changes in a source code where a whole team is contributing. So using Git, you can see who all made changes to that source code, when did they make the changes, and you can revert back certain changes. You can see the whole history. So that is why this is quite useful, and every company uses. I mean, this is as per my experience. And then there
I'm
comes.
sorry, Swati, can you please zoom into the notepad?
Yeah, sure. Is this good?
Yeah.
Let me just yeah. So this was about Git. Then we have GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket. Okay, these are okay. So a lot of users get confused with Git versus. I mean, they say, okay, Git and GitHub are same. No, it's actually not same, because GitHub is a service which provides the capability to host Git repositories. I mean, it provides you additional functionalities as well. Similar to GitHub, right? We have GitLab, Bitbucket, where you can go and host your Git repositories, and they provide you additional functionalities like CICD pipelines, deployment pipelines, which you can find in GitLab. So, I mean, these three I have personally experienced, hence I've noted it down. Then the next point which comes in picture is the application layer protocol. I mean, it's okay if you're not aware what is application layer protocol. I mean, I'm sure you might have heard about HTTP or HTTPS. HTTPS is nothing but secure HTTP. So why I'm saying that you should have basic knowledge, at least what is HTTP, why do we use HTTP? I mean, if one say, okay, suppose in company one is saying that, okay, we might use HTTPS instead of HTTP. So I think you should have basic knowledge, and this will be useful for both the branches, like whether you are front-end developer or whether you're back-end developer. And similarly, what is API? So API is nothing but is application programming interface. So it's basically the function which lets you interact with the application, with the data in the applications. So when I was showing you the Google, and as soon as I click the search icon, so in the backend, some API was getting called, which was responsible for going and fetching the required data and then sending the response to the front end, the client side. Okay, then this, let me just edit this. I'll say basic terminal or CMD usage. Now, why I'm saying this, because I mean, see, there are IDEs which you can use. IDEs like Visual Studio, Eclipse, IntelliJ, and you can do direct. You can run your direct commands from those IDEs like Git commands or any such other commands. But it is always useful and recommended to have basic knowledge about terminal or CMD commands. Now, the terminal commands, what I mean by terminal is the Linux terminal. The basic commands could be like creating a folder, going and listing the files in that particular folder, creating a file, opening a file, editing a file to see the active processes running. So, I mean, this will be useful while debugging if you encounter any error while testing your end-to-end feature. Then the last point which I'll say is internet basic knowledge. Like as soon as I wrote google.com in the URL box, right? How did I receive the Google response page? So, I mean, this, I guess everyone should know basic. And in layman language, I would say that what is DNS, what is the exact workflow. I mean, if I'm the user, and what will be server in this, what will be the server, what will be the client, and am I triggering the HTTP call, am I triggering a HTTPS call. So if you go to, say, suppose google.com, right? Right. So you see this logged icon, right? So this says the connection is secure. Why? Because this is HTTPS. So if I double click, I can see this is HTTPS call. So these are the basic knowledge one should have before starting onto front end or back end or full stack, whatsoever you might take or might opt. And then if we deep dive, so for the front end, right, the very first thing is again reiterating the internet knowledge, the internet basic knowledge. Then comes up the HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript, I mean, I was going through the chat, the message you posted in chat box, right? So many of you are aware about HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So these are the basic languages you should be aware of while going or while expecting to become a front-end developer. Okay. So then comes the web security knowledge. Now, web security knowledge, okay, that might be a possibility that you're not aware of web security knowledge, and that is absolutely okay. Once you start with a corporate journey, right, you'll get the hang of it. But why? But by web security knowledge, I mean again the secure connection, which I gave an example, right? The secure HTTPS. So one of the example would be HTTPS. Another would be CORS, which is cross-origin. I mean, so again, CORS is I don't want to go into depth for CORS. So let's just pause with CORS as a keyword for now. So by web security knowledge, you can keep HTTP in your mind for now. Then comes in the pictures package managers. Now, personally, I have worked with NPM Yarn, and that is why I've noted it there. So by package managers, I mean the package managers are responsible. They'll allow you to download certain packages, even play around it with. So, I mean, these packages are really useful, at least to me, while creating or developing a web application. Now, after package managers comes in picture are build tools. So build tools are required for building the application for production. Now, as part of build tools, you can see different module bundlers. Module bundlers are Webpack, and then comes up linters or formatters. Now, the example of linter could be SonarLint or ESLint. So what is linter? Linter is nothing but there will be specific rules, like while coding you cannot write more than say 256 characters in a single line. So if you write more than 256 characters, it'll show you a warning. This sonar lint plugin will show you a warning saying, okay, you have exceeded this character amount. So these type of linters are provided. And then formatter, Prettier is an example of formatter. Formatter will basically make your code more readable. So this is always recommended to write your code readable. So, I mean, by readable, I mean with proper indentation, with proper comments. So formatters will help you with proper indentation, spacings and all. So every company, they have their specific formatters, or they take the IDE formatters, which are already in place. Then the last which I came up with was frameworks in front-end development. So with frameworks, I mean React, Angular, Vue. Like these three are at least what I'm familiar of. So with React, then comes with state management libraries. So by state management libraries, I mean, so we have different state, right? We have child component and we have parent component. You can pass on the states from parent to child, from child to parent, from one sibling to another. So for managing those states, one can use Mobix or Redux. These two other state management libraries available to work alongside with React. So this was it for the front end. I mean, again, see, these are not the only elements which I can think of while working on front end development. The list will go long, and I mean, the list will go on and on. I mean, this is what came up in my mind, so I wrote it down. And now if we talk about backend, right? So again, in the backend development section, the very first stream which I would suggest is again internet knowledge. You should have basic internet knowledge. And again, the internet knowledge, by internet knowledge, I mean the DNS and how internet works, what will be server, what is client, and how exactly when I'm writing google.com, how exactly I'm able to see the Google page. Right, and then comes in the picture is OS and general knowledge. So OS is the operating system. So in OS and general knowledge, right, what we can talk about is memory management, paging, I/O capacity, input output, like what all operations are input heavy, what all operations are output heavy. Like process, we can talk about process management, we can talk about concurrency, we can use threads to perform a basic operations which will improve our time for that particular operation. We then again comes the basic terminal, CMD, PowerShell commands you should be aware of. Then the basic networking concepts, we have already talked about DNS. Then comes up in the picture is load balancing. How can we balance the load while say suppose heavy traffic is coming. So suppose thousands of users click on one link together. So we should be aware that how can we handle that big amount of load, right? So these are the basic concepts one should be aware of before working on backend development. Then again, this is pretty much expected, right, to learn a programming language. Then these are different programming languages. I mean, there are more programming languages. I have just noted down few. Like C++, C, Java, Python, Golang, C Sharp, PHP, JavaScript, Ruby, and there are many more programming languages. Then again, the Git, that is the version control system. This is important in front end as well. I might not have noted down, but this is important in both the branches. You should be aware of git commands and any one of the repo hosting services. Like your future company might be using Bitbucket, your future company might be using GitLab. It's okay. I mean, they're kind of same only. And then comes up in the picture is database. Why? Because when you're doing a backend development, right, you're handling data. So while handling data, you need some place, right, to store the data, the way you can access the data, different operations you can perform on the data to access the data. So for those, you need database. So before going more into the database, there are some basic concepts you should be aware of. So the ACID principle is nothing but atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. So these are the terms we often take with databases. Then transactions. So the ACID properties, right? These are we talk about in context with transaction. So a transaction should be atomic. A transaction should be consistent enough. We should focus on isolated transactions and so on. Then normalizations are performed to avoid ambiguity. Ambiguity, like we keep on dividing We keep on dividing tables into smaller and smaller distinct tables to remove ambiguity while accessing the data. Then comes up the indexes is sort of an advanced topic in database where you can place indexes. Indexes will eventually increase the accessing speed of your accessing, basically the speed of accessing data from database. Then there are two types of databases: the relational database and the NoSQL database. So relational database are basically where there are specified relations between the schemas we create, right? So relation can be any. So suppose there is a users table and then there is a comments table. So what all users have commented, what all comments can be stored in a specific kind of relation, right? So these kind of relationships are maintained using relational databases. So the example of relational database are MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, and so on. Personally, I have worked on MySQL and Postgres. And then NoSQL is basically there are no specified relation. I mean, we do not store data on the basis of specific relation here. So the example could be MongoDB, Firebase, Cassandra, CouchDB. Okay. Then the important aspect in backend development is APIs. APIs is we have already talked about APIs, right? The application programming interface. So you need to write APIs. These APIs will be required by the front-end developer to, I mean, as soon as, so if you're implementing a feature of searching, right? So as soon as I click the search button, the front-end developer will be calling the search API. That search API will be written by the backend developer. So in that API, you will be writing your main logic, how to retrieve the required data from the database, then to do certain manipulation on that data, say like you're filtering out some data on basis of some conditions provided from the UI, and then returning the final response back to the front-end developer, I mean the user interface. So these are different kind of APIs we talk about: the REST APIs, SOAP APIs, gRPC. I mean, it's basically RPC, remote process control, remote process call. So G is basically for Google. So this is provided by Google. And then, okay, caching is another important aspect we take care while basically adding a logic for any feature, right? So what is caching is? Caching is again to increase the speed of, basically to reduce the time in accessing a particular data. So what if I'm going and saying, hey, what's my name? So I know my name is Swati, right? The call is idempotent. The response will always be Swati, right? So why should I go to server each time asking what is my name? I can save that response locally in my phone saying, okay, whenever I will hit this question saying what is my name, I should get this response. So I mean, this is kind of a very vague example where caching is used. And real lifetime examples can be WhatsApp, right? We often cache data in WhatsApp. We often cache profile images. So whenever you go and see anyone's DP, right, it is cached in your mobile. So whenever again you will go and see the DP, it will not load the profile picture from the server. It will load the same profile picture from your mobile cache. So these are the caches which I have worked on. Redis is used for implementing distributed caching, and there can be in-memory cache, which will be specific to that application instance, right? Then we have talked about this, that in certain companies, right, they don't have specific testing profile. So they will not hire specific QA engineers. So there the developers are only expected to perform end-to-end testing, right? And be it a front-end or be it a back-end developer, you only have to perform the testing. So when I talk about testing, right, there are again different types of testing which comes in picture. Unit testing is like the existing functionality of that particular feature is not broken when I'm adding new code onto that feature only. Integration testing is if my new feature is dependent on any other feature, or if I'm altering the functionality of some other feature on the basis of my new feature, then basically the integration of the whole features from, I mean, the dependency of one feature on the other should remain as it is. It should not break any other functionality. So these, and the other one is functional testing. So these are the types of testing which comes in picture. And when we talk about testing, right, we also talk about deployments hand to hand. So by CICD, I mean is continuous integration, continuous deployment. So continuous integration, continuous deployment is similar to integration testing, which I'm saying that whenever I'm pushing my latest code changes to the production, right, or to the test instance or the development instance, I don't want to break my existing functionality, right? So it will test all the existing functionality, it will test the dependency, and then it will deploy your changes. So for these, there are certain tools. So I personally worked on Jenkins, and then in GitLab we have CI/CD pipelines. Then, if you're a backend developer, you have to keep in mind the architectural patterns. Now you can develop your application as a microservice application or a monolithic application. So by microservice application, I mean is, so if you take an example of WhatsApp, right? WhatsApp is an application, but if you go and deep dive into the WhatsApp application, then there might be certain small applications which are coming up together and making WhatsApp as a whole application. And those applications can be like, okay, this application is responsible for handling the images and videos, this application is responsible for the text, and so on. So these are the microservices which are coming up together and then forming up WhatsApp as an application. Whereas monolithic would be one application in picture. I mean, at backend also there is only one application, so that will be monolithic. And then the last important topic is, I mean, you should be aware, right? I mean, this sort of comes in internet knowledge. I mean, what kind of servers you generally work on. The servers can be Apache, the servers can be Nginx or IIS. And then again, see, I have not yet covered the whole scenario of backend development. Then, different message queues, message brokers, these all concepts come in picture. So yeah, I mean, we can talk, we can go on and on. I mean, this is kind of a topic which cannot be summed up in 20 to 25 minutes, right? So I've tried to capture the most of it, which I know personally. And yeah, that's it from my end, at least for the roadmap part. And yeah, I mean, for the mistakes part, right? If I talk about the mistakes I have committed in my professional experience, right, professional journey, is like one of the mistakes I've already told you, right? Let me stop sharing first. Yeah. So one of the experience which I have already told you, right, that not going with a mock-up and directly start implementing, that will eventually increase your review cycle. So that one mistake you can definitely avoid committing. The second mistake I would say is to properly design, I mean, properly focus on your designing phase, right? That is important. And be clear, be vocal whenever you're, communicating yourself to anyone else in industry, right? Well, eventually it will help you increase your overall productivity, is what I can say. Yeah, and that's it from my.
Thank you so much, Swati, for that wonderful session and that beautiful roadmap. So I just have a few announcements before we move into the question answers. We do have a lot of questions. We have a lot of pre-submitted questions also. So just before that, I would like to inform everyone about the boot camp. So I think most of you are a part of the boot camp, and that is how you know about it, about this masterclass. But MyWays is hosting a free coders boot camp, which is going to be for 8 weeks, starting tomorrow. The topic for web development is front-end development. So we'll go into the depth of all of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React, including React ecosystem. So there will be intensive 2 to 3 weeks only for React. And at the end of the bootcamp, we also have projects. So there are a lot of questions about what kind of project should we build, how should we approach projects. So I think we'll help you in building those projects, definitely. Again, it's a free bootcamp. You're welcome to join in. And just in. So as and when we answer the questions, maybe I will drop in some quiz questions. So yes, Devada, there will be industry referrals also, definitely. So that is, of course, what the aim of the session is, right? To help you develop that skill to get you that internship or get you that experience. But I'll be asking maybe some quiz questions in this. So I was just told by the team that we have launched some discount coupons. So I will just ask some questions. If anybody is able to answer, maybe I'll be able to help you with 30% and 40% discounts while you're answering the questions. I think that will be good. Gunjan, I'll just drop in the links, everything while Swati is answering questions and taking questions. I'll drop in the details. Maybe I can interrupt in between and ask us questions, and if anybody knows the answer, they can share it. Right. In case you're curious, so the learning is completely going to be free. Uh, just the project part is the premium part that we are offering. Oh, thank you, Harshita, so much. Right. So the projects are premium, and that is what I am offering the discounts for. Yes, I think that was a bit about the announcement. I think we can move to the questions, Swati. Are we ready?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So I think the first question I'll take from the chat first, and then we can move to the pre-submitted questions.
Right.
Zenith is asking the significance of AWS and cloud computing.
Okay, so I mean that is a very good point. I mean that would have come up in DevOps if I would have gone for the roadmap for DevOps, right? But again, so AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud Platform, right? So these are the three most popular clouds we usually work on. So okay, so I mean, if you have knowledge of cloud, right, this will be kind of an additional advantage to you if you're applying for any jobs in market, right? They don't come and ask you specifically, okay, do you have any experience, do you have any knowledge? No, I mean, because these are kind of cloud providers, right? Once you go and start working on these clouds, you'll get the hang of it. I mean, having an experience of these cloud will only be an additional experience and not the prerequisite is what I can think of. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I hope Zina that answers the question, right? So I think the first question, we'll not unmute ourselves because then it will be a mess. The first person to type in the chat, we'll just note the name. You can message us. You can claim your coupon if the answer is right, right? So we'll start with easy. So can anybody name any one repository hosting service? Swati can't answer, obviously. Okay. Okay, we have a lot of people. Okay, great, awesome. I think I'll just go with one more question. Any one relational database? I think Swati talked about that also. Okay, awesome. We have some. Okay, great. I think it will be tough for us, but okay, great. We'll figure out a way to give you all some coupons at the end of the session, right? So, I think we'll move to the next question that was in the chat. Um, so Kundan is asking that he wants to learn React JS front-end development. So is it good, and how? What is the scope in the future? He already knows the basics of Monstack.
Okay, so I mean, see, if you're asking me the future prospects of learning React and right, so if you know React, then you can definitely opt for front-end development roles or full stack development, right? And in the market, these roles, I mean, the market currently is a very hot market. I mean, they're approaching developers on all the roles, like whether it be front-end or back-end or full stack, right? And then in companies, right, we have specific teams called as UI UX teams where they work specifically on UI UX components. So they only look for front end developers specifically. So if you know React, then I mean definitely you have a very good chance of getting job in front end development, right? And full stack so definitely will be there because you know front end aspect. So yeah, I mean you should go ahead learning React is what I can suggest.
Okay. Harshita asks a discussion around programming languages. I think we covered that later after she put in that question. But what is your opinion, or if you can maybe shed some more light on programming languages?
Right. See, I mean, according to me, logic is the main scene. I mean, programming languages are analogous, right? I mean, if I come and say, okay, I know C++, and what if the company says, can you code in Java once you join the company? Obviously, I will need some time to go and look the syntax. But again, if I know the logic, and I can definitely code it out. So, from my own experience, each and every company in the interviews also, they will not specifically ask you to code it down in a specific language, say Java. They will give you the liberty to choose the language. They only want to see the logic and your, thinking ability. So, I mean, it's good to have more and more knowledge about different programming languages. But again, in the company, they will see more again your logic and not the syntax. Basically, they'll see how fast you can grasp the syntax. But that is again all over a different scenario.
Okay. So Utkarsh asks, being a student of third year, what should I go for, GSOC or DSA? I'm pretty good with Merge Stack. However, I have paused working on any projects to focus on DSA.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, this question is not that clear to me. GSOC is basically for the open source development, right?
Utkarsh, are you there? If you can maybe unmute and ask the question
Yeah,
yourself. Okay.
yeah. And to if I am going to get internship or placement in any companies, I have to work on DSA. And if the company does not come to my college, then GSOC is one of the ways to give my resume a boost. So, which should I focus more on, GSOC or DSA part?
No, no. See, the GSOC part is that Google, the open source, right? That you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, see, in that also you will be working on development, right? And when I say development, whether be front end or back end, it will involve DSA concepts, right? I mean, you have to work on data structure and algorithms, right? So DSA will come in picture even if you're going to any company or you're working on any project, open source project as a part of GSOC, right? So, according to me, you should be very well versed with DSA concepts. And then, if you don't have interns, I mean, so see, the internship opportunities and the GSOCs are, I mean, they're equal according to me. So many company, I mean, you will have an additional advantage if you have some GSOC experience. Why? Because you work on open source. They have very good, existing guidelines, very prescribed guidelines, saying that way they manage their code quality very well. So if you go and work on an open source project, right, you will be having a very good exposure to the code quality and the way you should code. And this is exactly the same scene which companies prefer. I mean, if you go for an internship, right, they will teach you this only. I mean, how to code well, how to code in a good manner. And then when you will join as a full time, they expect, okay, since you have already interned and you already know how to code good and how to have a good code quality, and that is where that is where the internship, right, gives you an additional advantage. Why? Because you already have some exposure in industry. So these two are equal opportunities as far as I know, either working on an open project as a part of GSOC or going for an internship opportunity.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Great. I have another question for people to get ready to answer. So, if anybody can tell me the full form of CICD, I think Swati also covered this in her presentation. The full form of CICD. Shubkanta, I'll just take your question. Please don't Google. Okay, yes. That was fast enough for people to not Google. Okay. Great. Awesome. Okay, so Shubkanta's question. So you can drop in questions. I'll then move to the pre-submitted questions. I think one of them was very related to the question Utkarsh just asked. So I'm right now taking Shubkanta's question. I have a question. I am from pure non-IT background and I'm working in TCS right now. And I got tagged to a development project, but I'm facing difficulties as I had no exposure before. So what would be your suggestion regarding this? And he's the first one who answered the CICD question. I think you're doing pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, Swati.
congratulations, Shukranta, for the discount coupon you just got now. Okay. So, I mean, first of all, congratulations. I mean, you're working in TCS. So, see, I mean, this will happen everywhere. I mean, you don't, I mean, this is not expected, right? To have, I mean, the company cannot expect from me that I will have knowledge about each and every topic, right? They're working on. So this is expected. I mean, this scenario will quite happen. I mean, this has happened with me personally, is what I can say. So, for example, I was not aware about what is Jenkins, and when I joined the company, they said me, okay, you need to deploy so and so application using Jenkins. We hope that you are aware of Jenkins. And I was like, okay, I don't know what is Jenkins. So what I did was I asked them a certain time period during which I can go and practice. I can have some hands-on experience on Jenkins, and then so I you know I what I so my suggestion would be go and ask certain time period, certain frame time period, and meanwhile you can go and read the documentations. The official documentations are again very good. So suppose you are facing problem, say suppose with the specific technology, like for example React, right, and you're facing certain problems, so go and read about React, read about that particular problem you're facing. And if not, try to find a mentor within your own team. That is a very good approach which I will suggest, is because I also, what I did was I found one mentor in my own team, and I used to go and approach him asking certain questions. And that questions can be silly questions, right? I don't mind because I want to learn, right? So I went to him. I asked him questions like how should I go and how should I approach this, and how from where I mean from where should I learn Jenkins. So that is quite useful. I mean this I can suggest for now.
Right. I think we talk about adaptability a lot, right? So when we are joining corporates or industry, so even when we do master classes, so it's a common question that how will I keep up? So I think it is a lot about adaptability and how your
Right, right.
logics, how clear are your logics, right?
Right. I mean, throughout, as you move forward, right, in your professional life, I mean, you will learn things. I mean, it's not like that you have to learn before joining any company. I mean, along with your journey, right, you will learn things. I mean, this is not the point. I mean, you should take tension off, is what I can say.
Right. Yes, I think Divyansh, I saw your question in the pre-submitted form also. So, is reading blogs on V3 schools, W3 schools, better than learning on YouTube for learning basics of web dev?
So Divyansh, I mean, this depends on person to person, right? For me, I'm a good learner from videos. For someone can learn better from reading documentation. So I would say, I mean, this is kind of a personal recommendation kind of a question. So if you are comfortable enough to read documentation and then implement it, then good to go. You can read documentation and go. But if you feel comfortable that you want certain videos to practice, then see the videos and go on. I mean, it depends. I mean, there is no comparison here. I can say.
Yes, definitely we can try both and see what suits us, what
Yeah.
is working for us. Right. I have another question for everyone. Right. So, can anybody name uh, anyone know SQL database?
You will be asked questions on SQL database because you're claiming that you know SQL database. Yes, yes.
Right. Awesome. So we have a lot of participative people today. That's good. Right. So about the, I think one more person asked about internships. So I would just like to mention. So MyBase provides Practicum Plus, which is a 6-month intensive course for full stack development, right? So it just came into my head. Maybe the next two answers, we can give 50% off on that. So that's a completely premium program that costs around 8,000 rupees for the complete 6 months. So I'll be happy to give 50% off to the next two winners. Let's do it too. Yeah, two is good. Right. So I think I'll move to another question for Swati.
Yeah.
So we have people who have asked a lot about projects, right? So how to make projects, what is the importance, how do I choose a project, and what really should I take care of so that it looks good on the resume. That is the purpose of learning maybe.
Okay, so for projects, if I talk about, right, so okay, so whenever interviewer sees a particular project on resume, right, so their aim is to see what all technologies you have already worked on and whether you have created that project on your own. I mean, how well versed are you with that project, right? So if I talk about my own experience, so after the second year in college, right, so in third year we have companies coming up for internship opportunities, right? So after second year, we had 2 months of that summer break. So in that, I had to create a good project for my resume. So that time, I used to create very Android applications. So we used to have this club in the college called as an Actors Club. So I created a app for that club only, and I added that application, that Android app, as a major project in my resume. So that also worked well. And if you're thinking what should we make a project, I mean what should we start as a project, then you can clone any given, you can start with an e-commerce website. You can create Amazon clone, you can create a Flipkart clone. If you don't want to think about the user interface, where should we put, so start, I mean you already have the user interface in place, right? You just have to clone it while coding it. So you can start with any e-commerce development, any e-commerce site as a project. And for that, I mean there are many good YouTube series already in place where they tell you how to create those e-commerce websites. So you can follow those series and then go and create the projects. I mean, apart from e-commerce sites also, right, many students, they create certain chatbots or I mean, apart from chatbots, I mean, Android applications are also one of the options they create. And yeah, I mean, there are different. I mean, these were the three or four projects which were top in my mind. So yeah.
Right, definitely. So, if I specify the question further, so I think that was a good start. So, Naman is asking that he's working on a blog engine where every basic functionality of a blog site is there, and it is a big enough project for him. So, it's taking him time. So, do you suggest he should take up such a big project, or maybe two, three more simpler ones?
No, it's perfectly fine to have a good project. I mean, the interviewer is not expecting to have you all the features in your project, right? You can just mention the one or two good features you already have in your project, and that will suffice. I mean, in resume. I mean, the main aim of project is that you are already familiar with some technologies and you're well versed. I mean, you already have hands-on experience on those technologies. So this is the aim of projects mentioned on your resume. So it's not like that you have to create a very big project with all the features in it. No, I mean even if you're aiming right e-commerce, that itself is a very big website, right? You cannot create all the features all in all. I mean in just 1 month or 15 days. So it's okay. You can have major functionalities and that will suffice, I guess.
Right. So, I think if we have two very important questions which are not as such related to web development, but one is definitely around time management. Prathamesh has asked, is it possible to plan 6 p.m. onwards after work or college for practicing problem solving or creating projects, right? So that is a lot. I think a lot of people struggle with time management, how to manage with either work or college. So maybe some tips around that. How did you figure it out? Because I also see that you have been very active co-curricular in a co-curricular sense, right? So any tips around that?
I mean, so see, when I was in college, right? So first and second year, I used to code, right? And then third year after internship, also I used to code. And final year, I was not that active. But what my aim was to at least attempt 5 coding questions daily. So if I'm feeling low, if I'm not that confident, I used to attempt easy questions. If I'm confident enough, then I used to attempt medium level questions. And I used to attempt hard level questions only on weekends when I have some time in my pocket, right? So that way you can go. I mean, you should have a threshold, right? I mean, you should have a limit. Okay, I will attempt 5 questions, whatsoever be the reason, whatsoever may happen, but I will attempt 5 questions. And then those questions can be of any level, be it easy, medium, or hard. So that way I used to cover a lot of questions. And for time management, again, right? I mean, this will depend person to person, is what
But
I.
I think the thing that you've mentioned, right? Practicing daily requires consistency, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
consistency requires motivation.
yeah.
So, so what do you think? So maybe just out of personal experience, what was your motivation of sticking to 5 questions every day? Right? It's one thing to plan it, but it's one thing to be motivated enough to do it every day.
Yeah. See, if I have to do 5 questions, I will not be doing that 5 questions after 11. I mean, whenever I will get the time throughout the day, I will attempt one question. So suppose
Mm,
today in the morning, then
mm,
maybe in the afternoon break, I'll attempt another question. So it was like that. So the motivation was pretty simple. I need a job. So that time the motivation was this only, that okay, I have to
mm.
practice. And initially, from 11th class onwards, I was interested in coding. So I used to code in 11th and 12th also. So the interest was already in there, but to have motivation, I mean, to attempt 5 questions, a lot of motivation was required. So when first year was over, I used to attempt 1, 2 questions. It was okay, but then as soon as second year was about to finish, right? Then 4 to 5 months prior to that, I had this practice in my hand that I have to attempt 5 questions because okay, I need that internship anyways. Otherwise, I have to plan my own. I have to go off campus. So that will be a lot of effort. So this was kind of a motivation, okay, to save certain efforts. Why not do some efforts right now and not later?
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, awesome. So, Pawan, who is our web lead here, web development, so he often says that the only way to become a coder is to actually code and code and code.
Yeah, yeah,
So you cannot call yourself a coder if you're not practicing, if you're not
right.
clear with the basics. Yeah, definitely. Right. So the next important question is around communication. So I think we have mentioned it in our key takeaways also because it is something that people often ask, people often struggle with. So what is the importance of communication and how can one come out of their shell, and how important it is, what how does industry treat require communication?
Okay. I mean, so see, communication is again very important. I mean, as important as DSA concepts, I would say. I mean, I have seen personally some of my, friends or juniors, they were very good at with DSA concepts, and but they were not able to explain their solution to the interviewers, right? They wrote correct solutions, but they again were not able to explain it. So effective communications is very important. I mean, the way you're communicating yourself to the other is very important. And even if you write when you're joining the company and when you're starting your industrial life, right, then also it's very important to be clear, to be very vocal, right? It will avoid unnecessary problems, it will avoid unnecessary situations in your corporate life, right? Situations where you're not vocal enough, where you said, okay, maybe I will do this, maybe I can try this, no, and then at the end you were not able to do that. So it's good to be effective. I mean, it's good to be vocal clearly. If you don't know, clearly say it. I don't know. I can maybe try, but I cannot commit myself to this work because I don't know how to do this. I may need some more time. I will need at least 1 week to understand this topic. I mean, so you, and apart from these also, right? You should have a very good networking circle in your corporate life, because this might be a situation that you're not happy in your current team, but in order to do a team switch, you need to know other team also, right? So in order to know that, you have to know anyone else from other teams, right? For that, you need to do networking. And for networking, you need to have good communication skills. And
Right.
if come out of the shell, I would say, if you're feeling less confident, go in the front of a mirror and practice, is what I would say. I mean, I used to do it in my school days when I was not that confident. So yeah, I mean, this helped me a lot personally. So
Right. That was great advice. So definitely, I feel ki once you just do it, once you are over your first initial mental barrier to do anything new. So whether be it talking to new people, whether be it okay, I have to manage my time. So once you get out of your initial barrier, it gets easier with every step. Right.
right, right, right.
Swati, would you like to ask a question for the rupees 4,000 rupees off? Right. That's so. Any question that you can ask from your presentation today?
Okay. Let me have a look. I mean, um,
In the meantime, if there's any question left that I did not take, okay, we do have a lot of questions.
okay. I mean, this can be a very basic question. The full form of
That's okay.
API, if anyone knows.
Okay, full form of API. Google time is gone. Yeah. Now, फिर ज़्यादा is safe. Otherwise, I would say that's now it's Google time. Okay, awesome. Please, Zada, you can message us on our WhatsApp. In the thank you email, I usually send the summary and everything, so maybe I can drop in all these details also. So I think, Swati, are we good to extend for maybe 5-10 more minutes?
Yeah,
We have some pending questions. Great,
yeah,
thank you. So Gunjan asks, any suggestions you have for a particular platform for coding practice?
again, I have many good platforms in my mind right now.
You can
So
mention.
after second year, when I'm already aware of many concepts, right, all the concepts like graphs and all. So I used to go on interview bit to have a very good practice, because there we have time limit, right? There is a clock and we can measure how many. I mean, the time required for us to solve that questions. We can see that. But if you want more questions, I used to practice on Lead Code. In my college days, I used to practice questions on Code Chef. We have longs coming up on Code Chefs. We have contests coming up on Code Chefs. I used to attempt those questions. And then in college days, I also used to attempt a contest on Code Forces. Those contests were very good. I mean, some of the questions were of high level, but again, I used to attempt those questions. So, I mean, I used to attempt a lot of contest questions. Why? Because in contest, you have a specific time period, right? And in interview also, you cannot take 2 hours or 3 hours for attempting a question, right? You have to solve a question in a given time period. So for that, I used to practice in a given time period after I'm aware of all the concepts and I'm confident enough that I have the logic in mind. But to think of that logic in a given time period, I used to practice that using these websites in contest. So yeah. I mean, there are many more sites I can take name of, but I mean, these are the top few I have in my mind right now.
Great. So I think the last question for the coupon. This is not from the presentation, but I think it's okay to ask this since you are attending a MyWays session. So we have a usual tagline that we say that MyWays has an aim, a mission for our learners, for our students. So what does MyWays aim to help you become? So MyWays aims to help you become dash fresher. So can anybody fill the gap? Just in case, if you must have seen it in all our social media, on all our websites. So MyWays helps you in becoming a dash fresher. It's an oxymoron. So oxymoron is basically when two words are joined together but they mean the opposite same thing. So a peaceful fight or peaceful protest is an oxymoron. So MyWays helps you become an dash fresher. Okay, Prathamesh is right. So he has answered it. Experience fresher, yes. So that is what we aim for. We hope we are able to add some value in your journey to become an experienced fresher. Right, I think the last question is from Prathamesh himself. So he's asking, technologies and frameworks can be overwhelming while pursuing our web development journey. From fundamental standpoint, our daily JavaScript and CSS exercises enough to stay consistent.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they will suffice definitely. And because see, for the front end part, right? JavaScript is JavaScript, HTML, CSS. These three are everywhere in each company where we're working on front end, right? I mean, at least most of the companies which I know. So if you have good knowledge about JavaScript, then definitely you are on correct path. Because if you go into that company, so they might not be using React, right? They might be using Angular, or they might be using Vue. So if you're very well versed with JavaScript, then yeah, keep practicing JavaScript is what I could suggest.
Right. So one person is asking the difference between STE and full stack. I know I said the last question, but just maybe two or three more. So Darshan is asking the difference between an someone who's an STE and a full stack developer.
See, the difference is nothing as far as I know. It's just the titles different companies have. I mean, some companies will call you software developer, engineer. So you're expected to do both front end and back end. And then someone will call you full stack developer, like LinkedIn calls full stack developer. So in that case, again, you have to do work on both front end and back end development. If the title specifically says front end, then yes, only front end. And if the title says specifically back end or DevOps, then yeah, specific functionality will come in picture.
Okay. So Samyak asks, which web development frameworks are the ones that interviews look out for in our projects for product-based companies? Any particular thing that stands out?
No. So see, different companies, they use different technologies, right? While developing or implementing their codes, right? So that they don't look out. I mean, again, as far as I know, okay, so I can name 3-4 companies that these companies use React for as a framework to code. Or some companies they also use Angular. Now some companies have started using Vue. So they don't specifically look out for candidates having experience in React or Angular. I mean, these are additional advantages. What they look out for is experience in JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. These are the basic technologies you should be having hands-on experience with. And then so if you're having Angular, right, and if they are working with React in their company, then that will also serve an additional advantage only, having Angular. That should not make a difference. If you are having experience with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, that will suffice, and that is good enough for you to be chosen by the interviewer.
Right, great. Samyak, I think your question about how much JavaScript is required before moving to React, we'll be able to answer that in our bootcamp, hopefully. So you can check out the content. We'll go live tomorrow. If Swati also wants to take it up in brief.
Yeah, I mean, see, you cannot go and learn the full language before applying for the interview, right? Before applying for the job, right? And it's okay. I mean, even if I'm saying that I know C++ well, there might be some concepts in C++ that I'm still not very good with. And that is okay. I mean, the companies don't expect that you're expert of these languages. If you're expert, then why are you coming for these jobs, right? For the first. So it's okay. I mean, they don't expect you to be expert. I mean, just have knowledge about the basic functions of that language. That is okay.
Right. Great. I think so. We have our team has dropped the feedback form. Would be happy to hear about the feedback. I think that is all for the questions. Thank you so much, Swati, for extending the session, for sharing your knowledge, and for answering all the questions so